got a fat tire. Well, I guess we're changing a tube today. Put it against. Get you one of them preset custom metric standards right there. Unscrewing it, tap it over so I don't have to hit the threads. All you're looking to do is get it so that it goes past that. Helps you get the axle out. That way, if you take this out and your axle is stuck, if you take this nut off and you were to hit this with a hammer, it would mushroom it and ruin the threads and you wouldn't be able to put your nut back on. So put your nut back on it so it's just barely on there. You can tap it over like that and it won't damage your threads. Take this off. Slide that forward. Get the chain off of there. Get your axle the rest of the way out. Take this, just set it right there so you don't lose it. So now that the wheel is off, I put the sprocket facing down so I don't bust up my fingers on it. Take the stem cap off, kick it across the room, just in a safe spot. You're gonna need a 12mm and a 13. And the valve stem. The dirt in the threads helps when you twist it. This is great. Looks like that might be my problem right there, is why I got a flat. Looks like my valve stem is torn. It's not moving fast enough. You can fit a socket on there, better get a socket on it. Get that across the room. Put this in a special spot. This rim lock you don't have to take completely off because it's not ever actually going to come off the rim. The tube is on the outside of it. The rim lock keeps the bead of the tire sucked into the rim, so when you get spinning, you put your power down, the rim and the tire won't spin free of each other. This is what I use. Motion Pro tire spoons. You got a hook on one end and they're flat on the other. They're only that big. I keep these things on me whenever I go out and ride. If I go to an Enduro or a dual sport, I've always got one of these and a patch kit for tubes in my backpack so that I can get home. Well, you have to break the bead first. And I like to put the brake rotor up, because if I have this side up, all these teeth on this sprocket, once you get prying with this thing, you're pulling, all your weight is going right into this, and if you slip, it will dig you up. Those things are sharp, so flip the tire right over. I keep it on the ground because I like to stand on it to break the bead. So what I'm gonna do, see, don't start here because you won't be able to get it pinched at the bead lock. Rotate that thing around so the bead lock is opposite. You step right here, just off the rim, push it down. See, now you heard the bead squeak off there. Now the bead's off. In that section, you take the tire and rotate it, follow it around. This is a common theme. Break the bead. You get to the bead lock, push it up, step on it. Push it down, run. So now you got one side off, flip it over. Break the bead on this side. There it goes. You got this ridge on the rim and then your lip where the bead seals on the tire. You want to try and get the tire down into this groove as much as possible right here. This nice, clean, illustrated right here. Diddly diddly dee, diddly diddly dee, diddly diddly dee, diddly doodle doo. Beads broke all the way around. Now we're gonna start with the spoons. Take my tire spoons. I use the hook side. I'm gonna go in, you take the hook toward the tire so that the lip hooks this way. You got your bead lock, make sure you know, right here. Put my knees on it, keep the tire down in. Start at the bead lock because it's easier to push it in. Get on either side of that bead lock and you get down, you push this in just far enough so that you can feel it hook over the tire. You can see as you smush it, go like that, okay. So you get one started, go on the opposite side of the bead lock. You're gonna have to do this kind of a tandem effort. So you get that one up so that it cams over, and then break this side. And then it'll stay like that and twist the spoons out. Now I can use one spoon the rest of the way around this tire. See, and this whole time, you're gonna fight yourself if you don't push this in right here. So as you have this part up, you have to it creates tension. Right here, there's a lot of tension. As you come around, you can see you push this down on the opposite side so that gives you room on the opposite side of this. The tire has steel inside of here. So when you try to stretch it, it doesn't want to stretch. You need to push this down into this round spot right here. Just nice and clean. Continue around just every couple inches. Don't bite off more than you can chew, because if you were to come down here and try to bust it up out of there, you use a lot more effort and you're gonna fight yourself. Have to go back. Just do every couple inches. So now you take that round spot, the flat end, hook end, flat end. You can run that up in here, but pull it away like this. Don't push into it, because if you've got a new tube in there and you do that, you can, even if this is smooth, or especially if it's a screwdriver, you can mess up your tire. So now we're up to, get that valve stem. We're gonna start here. Pull the tire up. Get a finger in there. I push it this way, you push that valve stem up. It is in there too. Let me help myself here. Pull that tire off of this way. Pull the rim. I'll give you more room to get at the tube. Except right at the bead lock, you can see that it holds it there. So now we've got enough room, and the tube is actually starting to come right out on its own. Another reason that you want to keep this up, if there isn't a hole in your tube, and you yank this out of there, and you drag it across some sharp teeth in your sprocket, you could be patching your tube. And if you don't have a patch or a tube, you have to go home or stay where you are. We're gonna ride home on a flat. Done that too. Ah man, so there's my problem right there. The valve stem, like I was saying, this tube is toast. That happens. I don't need to look for another hole, but I will look in the tire to make sure that there's nothing sticking through it. That could have been a secondary thing. If I had run a flat tire and that bead lock couldn't hold the tire to the rim, this tire could have spun on the rim because it wasn't inflated, and it could have smashed and tore up my valve stem. So hear the sound. That's never a good sound. So I'm gonna put a new tube in this thing. This is a heavy duty Kenda. Probably the least expensive option. It doesn't have to be extra super heavy duty, because the more heavy duty that you get a tube, the harder it is to put in and take out. But I am cheap, And I have another tube already, so I'm gonna do that. Helps to have rags around the shop too. It's the best Christmas movie ever. Double nutter. Take that, keep that in a safe spot. There's two nuts. One goes on the inside of the rim, holds this washer against the tube, the stem, keep the stem sturdy. The other one goes on the outside of the rim, so you put this through the rim, put the nut over it, and you pinch it down so that this can't wiggle. Because if this wiggles a bunch, it'll turn into this whistling Willie right here. So it got loose and it tore it up. That one's junk. Putting a new one in. Fill up your new tube. Make sure it holds air before you put it in your tire. And we'll be back. If you don't have a compressor in your house, you can go to Walmart, AutoZone, whatever. Get one of these slime things. It's like 40, 50 bucks. Plug it into a cigarette lighter and you can fill up whatever tires you want to or need to. Goes into a cigarette lighter, 12 volts. Sure, you can get them so you can plug them into your wall, but these things work great. It's not quite like having a tank full of air, but this is fairly portable. If you had 12 volts DC on your bike, if you have like a 12 volt port that comes off the battery, if you have an adventure bike, you can plug these right into it. Sometimes when you're setting the bead on a tire, this is where having a tank would come in handy. Put this on, make sure that the tube holds air. Holds air. You want to get yourself one of these too, a little valve remover tool. And it helps a lot when you're trying to take it out. If you're trying to just change a tire, unscrew it, screw it back in, because I like to leave a little bit of air so that it holds its shape when you put it in there, because if you put it in and it wrinkles like this and then you catch that with a spoon, it'll definitely kill it. You have to take it back out and put a patch in it. And I'm going to spray this with a lubrication of sorts. Window cleaner works pretty good. And find your spot right here, rim lock, valve stem hole. You're going to line this all up. Goes right there. Okay, so your lubrication, got a little air in there. You could get away with some soapy water. You can use window cleaner, anything that'll get it lubricated up a little bit to the inside, that top of the outside. And the whole time you're handling your tube, make sure that you don't get rocks and stuff from all over the floor, or drag it on something, or hang it over like I considered. If you hang it over a vise, you set that on there and it's a brand new tube, you run the risk of tearing holes. The whole purpose of this thing is to hold air, and if you poke a hole in it, then you're back to square one where we're at right now. So now that it's lubricated up, we got the tube is nice and slick. I got a little bit of air in it. Pull this back up like you do. Start, pinch it, smush it down, push it in there. Smush it in, trying to avoid those rolls. And as you come around, you're gonna have to keep pushing. Push it in, start it. Keep that valve stem lined up. We're gonna try and get this valve stem put in. This next step. Work your way around. Common theme. That rim lock right there is holding my tube up. Make sure you put that down around that rim lock. Take that valve stem, work it down into its hole. Get her going. I can see my valve stem is twisted a little bit. So set the tire back down and you can spin it just a little bit and square that up. Okay, Now we're cooking. Take your spray, spray right around the bead of the tire. Check one more time. Make sure that your tube is sitting inside the rim. So the way we're going to do it now is you're going to take this spoon with the hook end, you run it up along the rim until it drops over the corner of the rim, and then we'll pry it like that. I'm going to start at the rim lock, and you got to push the rim lock up. You get it out as far as you can. Unscrew that thing as far as you can so you can get as much leeway as you can possibly. So I'm going to start here, push that over so you can feel it. You go back and forth a little bit, you can feel yourself come off the rim and push into the tube. If you push into the tube, you run the risk when you pull this up of pinching the tube and getting a pinch flat, and you'll be back to square one. So you just barely hook it over the rim, and then my object is to get this section of the tire right here inside that rim lock, and that rim lock will help me hold this thing down. Go over here, keep one spoon in place. There you go. Okay, so now you take it, you press it in. Make sure that it stays, so when I take these spoons out, that tire will stay down. So now I'm going to keep a finger there. I'll push this side in. Just keep working it around. And pretty soon, I'm going to have to switch. I'm going to have to go back around and push this bead in. There it goes. So now it's starting to set the bead in. I'm just going to leave that one there and work this around. Just barely enough. I'm sticking this in, and you come up to the edge, and when it drops over the edge, you start to pull it up. Put it into the edge, and you pull it up, and it goes right around just like that. But it'll be in there a little bit farther, so follow it in, and you keep it tight against the rim so you don't pinch. It's very important. I'm going to hold down this side. I'll push this side. Let's twist it out. Little bites. Little bites. Little bites. Okay, so now it's starting to fight me. What I'm going to do, come back over here and push the bead in. See how it jumped off? Push that bead in, pull the bead up from the other side. Make sure that that tire is going to pinch in where you want it to. See, you push it like this, it goes in right here. You want it in there so that you can get this side. You're going to have to start using 2 spoons here in a second. Keep it pushed in all the way around. My other spoon. I'm going to go back here. I'll hold this with my elbow, just in case it decides to come up. This is a spot where you got to make sure that you're on just the rim, because it starts to get a little bit harder to push into the bead. And right now I can tell you there's a spot on this tire somewhere. If I try to push this, it gets real hard, and I don't want to do that. So what I'm going to do is take this tire, and I'm going to look at it, and I'm betting you on the other side it's on the bead somewhere. Yeah, right here on the whole back. Take this bead and you push it in. Ideally, you'd have lubrication on the inside of both of these. Okay, so now you got her lubricated. It's off the bead on the opposite side, all the way around. All right, flip her back over. Make sure you're pushed in as far as you can, and we'll see what happens. Should be a lot easier. Yeah, so it goes right in. Leave that one in. Just in there. Ew. Getting close. Probably one more. Okay, so this one I'm gonna make sure everything is pushed from the bottom, the top. We're off the bead. We got as much as we can get. Make sure you're not pinching the tube. Okay. Push that in. It's like that. So we're back in all the way around. Grab that nut. Put this back on here. Doesn't have to be super tight right now. We'll come back. But you want to make sure that you've got enough threads here so that when you go to put your nozzle on, you can actually fill it. Keep it wet. Okay. You want to see this bead start to come back out. If that tube fills up, it'll push the bead back out. Alright, so it's seated on the bead around all of this. But we're still not out here. You have to seat the bead. You have to make sure that it seats. And on this side, looks like this little ring right here. This whole side is seated on the bead. So you can take this, you can bounce this tire a couple times. That makes the rim and the tire seat together just by moving it a little bit. Okay, so now it's seated really good. You want to be able to see that bead line all the way around this tire. So we're in a good spot. So now I'm going to take a 1/2 inch. I'm going to tighten this back up. This doesn't have to be super tight. All it's doing is smushing rubber against this. So it's never going to get fully tight. Use your judgment. Tighten it up good and tight. But if you start to see it bulge, if you see a section of tire bulging out right here, that's plenty tight. Like it's getting, that's about all I would do. The same thing with this. You don't want it to be over tight, just snug. Check the air pressure. So now I'm at 18. I'd probably just leave it. So that way that later on, if I want to, I can take air out of the tire, but I can't put air back in unless I brought a pump with me. If you ever tried to use a bicycle pump on a big tire, it sucks really hard. So let's put this back on. Put your cap back on to keep mud and crud out. Get your axle. I cheat a little bit. What I'll do is I'll set this axle in there just so it hangs out and it clears, so that I don't have to use all kinds of fingers and having a third arm. Separated. Roll it up, sprocket on the chain side. So I got my axle set right here, my chain out of the way. I can pick this up, and I'm concentrating on getting that disc into the brakes, like that. Okay, push it up in there. So now I can hold the tire up. I got my axle ready to go, so I don't have to try and fish for it. Okay, you hit it like that and it stopped, it means it's hitting on this side. Line up the rest of your stuff, give her a couple of taps, push it forward, put the chain on. Once you've got the axle sticking through this side, put your chain on. Keep your fingers out. Then you can pull it back so that this clears. Tensioner. Tap it the rest of the way in. Put your other stuff back on this side. Push the whole wheel and axle up as far as you can. And you can tighten this down. Same deal. This doesn't need to be super tight. You can look at the torque specs if you want, or you can use an adjustable wrench and do it like this. But don't over tighten it, because you'll smash up your spacers and your hub and all kinds of stuff. So you gotta just, this is a big wrench too. Always use it in moderation. That's tight, it's not gonna come off. Pull it up, make sure it spins, clears everything. Chain tension's good. 2 fingers on a stand under the chain on the guide, or they've got a thing on the side here. If you really wanted to get technical, that's what KTM recommends, but I like my chain about this tight. Push the brake down several times to make sure that it's bled back in, but you want to make sure that your brakes work. And if you don't pump the brakes after you put the tire back on, to push it down 3 or 4 times before this pad starts to touch the rotor again. So that's it. There you go. That's it for calculated risk today. Put my tools away and I'm gonna go for a little ride. If you guys want to see something else on the channel, something special, got any questions about what went on here today with the bike, send me a message. The tire looks pretty good. It doesn't look like there's anything sticking through it. So the valve stem is probably the only issue with it. So we'll stick with that. But if it goes flat again, you guys will get another video. We'll talk to you next time. Thanks for joining us. Oh.